Rookies are always a really tough evaluation in fantasy football because you just don't know which rookies are going to produce. You have rookies that have seemingly more opportunity. You have rookies that don't, but end up producing anyways, like Puka Nacua, who's the next Puka. Newsflash. In fantasy, not another Puka. Not going to happen this year. But there are some guys here that we think could get some immediate opportunity in their offenses. It could lead to some year one fantasy production. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of drafting them in your fantasy leagues. And we're going to start with Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin was a guy that going through the draft process kind of was losing value. He got drafted. Now Troy Franklin is playing on the NFL team that drafted his college quarterback in Bo Nix, a quarterback he played with and was hyper productive at Oregon. He was one of the more productive 4th, 5th round receivers we've seen in the past couple years. I mean, again, going in a Power 5 school and the Pac-12, even though Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore, and being hyper productive and going to Denver, where Denver, their wide receiver 1 right now is Cortland Sutton. Outside of Cortland Sutton, who do they have? Marvin Mims? Put the depth chart up, Luke. Who else is even here?
It's not great.
It's not great. What the point is, there's a lot of opportunity in Denver's offense this year, especially from a passing game perspective. Troy Franklin is somebody that I think a lot of fantasy players are going to anticipate being hyper productive this year. Now, we do need to realize a couple things here. Number one, Troy Franklin, if he were to hit, and by hit we mean average 10 or more points per game this year, he would be a serious outlier, meaning most of the times, 4th round wide receivers like that, they don't score that many points. They don't come in and have an immediate impact on their team. Just because the opportunity is there, just because the volume is there, does not necessarily mean the production will follow. We've seen this in years past for fantasy football players when we were overdrafting guys like Allen Lazard because of the vacated volume fallacies, we like to call it, where there's a lot of volume in an offense, and so we take the next best wide receiver after the ones that depart, and then we expect them to perform at nearly the same level, where in Allen Lazard's case, he was a high-end wide receiver 3, I think, but we were drafting him higher than that. And so for Troy Franklin, kind of the same thing. Look, you have to think about it a couple ways. Number one, Bo Nix, he's not the most polished QB prospect that you have. How much are the Denver Broncos actually going to throw the ball? Will Sean Payton lean on Javonte Williams? Will he lean on Jaleel McLaughlin? Will he lean on Audric Estimé to run the ball a little bit more to get Bo Nix some easy throws? You have to consider that first. Number two, the type of player that Troy Franklin is small and not very fast. And so when you're talking about how he's going to win at an NFL level, even if he's on the field for 70, 80, 90% of snaps, how much is he actually going to be able to beat defenders, to be able to win at the line of scrimmage and get fantasy points? I mean, is he going to be targeted at a rate higher than 70, 80 targets? If he is, that could lead to some at least somewhat significant production for Troy Franklin based on the price he's going at. But at the same time, again, that really analytically is highly unlikely. And so with Troy Franklin, I think he's one of the most obvious candidates to be a guy who produces in year one that we just kind of aren't sold on exactly, but acknowledging that the situation's there.
It'll depend on the price for sure. And when you were looking at underdog ADP specifically, his price is pretty reasonable right now. He's going around that wide receiver 70 range overall, around other rookies like Roman Wilson. Ricky Pearsall ranked ahead of him right now. We don't even know what the situation in San Francisco is going to look like. I'm more confident in Troy Franklin producing at a higher level year one than I am. Pearsall, given
Absolutely.
that Debo and Ayuk will probably be there this year. Now,
And
if
Kittle.
that changes, obviously the situation for Ricky Pearsall will also change. But again, at the current price for Troy Franklin, I think both of us would agree his price is very reasonable. Just be aware that Troy Franklin could be a big time riser the closer we get to the season as the hype increases.
So if you're doing fantasy drafts now, which you're probably only doing basketball drafts now, then drafting Troy Franklin, not a terrible idea. Not really not, because again, at ADP of 157, you're talking about getting him 13th round, which again, I think there are better picks there. I mean, I do think like you can get Malachi Corley right around him, and I would take Malachi Corley over him.
But I'd take him over Luke McCaffrey. I'd take him over Adam Thielen. I would take him over Jermaine Burton this year for sure.
Like you're also getting like Darnell Mooney. I'd take Darnell Mooney there. But again, if his price rises and he gets up to even say like wide receiver 50 range, then you're talking about he's going next to Cortland Sutton. He's going next to Rashee Rice. He's going next to Tyler Lockett. That's where we're like, Jacoby Myers even. Okay, that's a little bit too high. It's going to be one of those to monitor. But Troy Franklin, obviously decent situation, and we'll at least acknowledge that he could be productive because of that. So keep your eye on him for sure.
Yeah, Ladd McConkey is another guy that you're absolutely going to want to keep an eye on, and this is very situational as well. There's a lot of talent from Ladd McConkey that he showcased at Georgia. That's the reason he went early second round to the Chargers. That's why they passed up on a wide receiver in the early first, and they went with Ladd in the second. They are confident enough in Ladd McConkey to at least right the ship for the first season of Jim Harbaugh's regime and for the LA Chargers. Whether or not you believe that is actually going to pan out, the opportunity is 100% going to be there because Quentin Johnson is entirely unproven. And this coaching regime actually drafted Ladd McConkey. So the chances that Ladd McConkey gets more opportunity than a guy like Quentin Johnson or even Josh Palmer, in my opinion, is way higher than those other guys.
Absolutely.
And when you're talking about Justin Herbert, look, you can have your own questions about Justin Herbert. I have my own questions about Justin Herbert and his passing volume. I don't think his passing volume this year will meet what he's done in past seasons under Brandon Staley, just because of the way that they're building their offense. Could it be more in future seasons? Absolutely. Could it be more than I expect even this year? Potentially.
I'm betting the opposite.
He's very, very, very talented. We all know that. We all know what Justin Herbert is capable of. And we know that the number one receiver of those targets is 100% going to be Ladd McConkey because of the team investment, because of the talent, because of his versatility as a route runner as well. He is capable of lining up on the outside. Doesn't mean he will, but if he lines up in the slot, it's a win. He's going to get all those easy targets. If he lines up on the outside, that means they're probably targeting him as the number one wide receiver option in that offense. Also a win.
And a lot of people would probably fight back with this and say, okay, Josh Palmer is going to be the guy there, or Quentin Johnson. Quentin Johnson, I guess maybe, but what we saw from Quentin Johnson last year wasn't great.
There's a route for Quentin Johnson to be productive, but I wouldn't put my money on a guy who severely, severely under-exceeded expectations last year compared to a guy who's fresh and ready to go like that.
And Josh Palmer, we know what Josh Palmer is. Josh Palmer played this role really when you're looking at 2022, and that was the year I think that Mike Williams was down almost the whole year. One of the years that Mike Williams was down the whole year. But Josh Palmer was pretty much sprung into a wide receiver 2 role. And he was a low-end wide receiver 3. I mean, you're not going to get that type of production out of Josh Palmer. He's just not that guy. He's not that guy, pal. So when you're looking at the situation, the guys around him, it's wide open. And I personally don't think that the weapons are going to be the reason that Justin Herbert doesn't throw the ball this year. When you're looking at last year in his passing attempts, he threw the ball last year 200 less times than he had in his first 3 years. He threw the ball 456 times. He's throwing the ball more than that this year.
He threw it dang near. I was talking about the previous years that actually mattered, though. Like, he's not throwing it 700 times next year. Like he did
probably not,
season.
but I think he could throw it. I think he could throw it 550 times. I don't.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't.
Yeah.
They're also the way they're building their offense. They're also not building it around running backs either. Like, it's not like they have really good running backs, and we're going to talk about.
They're definitely building it around a scheme, and I don't know if that's going to be a lot of like super efficient 5 to 10 yard dump offs, or if it's going to be a lot of like, let's drop back every single play and take shots downfield. That doesn't seem like a Harbaugh thing to do, at least what he's shown historically as a coach. Like, I think it's going to be very run first, and that doesn't mean Herbert's not going to pass at all. That just means maybe it'll be a bit more like play action, kind of protect Herbert from getting hit all the time, and maybe they're just going to get rid of the ball faster than they have in previous regimes under Brandon Staley.
Or they just play
which is, look, regardless of what you think it's going to be, that is a win for Ladd McConkey.
Yeah,
I think we can all agree on that, and his upside.
There's going to be volume there. There are targets to go around, and again, we don't want to use vacated volume fallacy, but when you're looking at his price, Ladd McConkey is being priced as a wide receiver 3 right now. So it's a wide receiver 3, it's a wide receiver 1 on his team with a top 10 NFL quarterback. That's why he's attractive. And then staying on the Chargers, honestly, we just talked about the running backs. Kamani Vidal is a guy who was drafted to the Chargers, and let's look at the Chargers running back room. Gus Edwards. I mean, Gus Edwards has had how many years now to be somebody? And last year was his best year as running back 25. He had 200 attempts for 800 yards. He had 13 touchdowns last year. And again, a lot of that was because it was the way that the Ravens were using him when they were getting in the red zone. It was Gus time. It was Gus Bus time. And I think Gus Bus can be productive this year. And look, he's reuniting there with Greg Roman. And I think Greg Roman, I think that's part of the reason they signed him. You see a lot of the Harbaugh connections there with the offensive coordinator, with some of the guys they're picking up. But that being said, Gus Edwards as a lead back, I mean, I just don't love it. Gus Edwards, 29 years old. Gus Edwards, again, the ceiling is not super high with him. Not to mention, he has struggled to stay healthy in the past. The guy behind him on the depth chart technically is J.K. Dobbins. And J.K. Dobbins, his highest PPR finish for running back, it was running back 23, his rookie year, that was 4 years ago. Hasn't been able to stay healthy since, really. And again, when you're looking at the rest of those backs, Kamani Vidal, Isaiah Spiller, Elijah Dotson, I think that Kamani Vidal has a better shot than those other guys at making the roster and working his way into a committee. Kamani Vidal was a guy that we were very high on pre-draft. He's a guy that went to Troy, so wasn't a super high-end prospect in terms of hype. But
in terms of production and efficiency, it was absolutely there at Troy. The last 2 years of his career in college at Troy, he had 1,100 yards and 1,600 yards. Specifically, he had 10 touchdowns, 14 touchdowns in those respective seasons. The thing that we like to see the most from Kamani Vidal, and the reason we think he could potentially have some upside in the NFL and really carve out a role in the Chargers offense, is his receiving upside, his receiving capability, his receiving efficiency. 11.2 yards per reception in his final year at Troy on 18 receptions, 200 yards, and a touchdown. He also consistently had over 20 receptions over the course of his career every single season. That's good. That's very, very good.
Second in the NCAA in rushing yards last year. The production's there. The receiving, again, when you're looking at these backs in the NFL coming from a fantasy perspective, they're going to produce right away. You typically look for the guys that have that receiving upside.
Yeah, when you're in the last round of your fantasy draft, Kamani Vidal is just one of those guys you're like, take him at Mr. Irrelevant.
Yes.
Or pick him up off waivers
because
before
right
the hype
now,
builds.
He's running back 49. You're getting him around J.K. Dobbins, Tyler Algier, Ray Davis, Ty Chandler.
Give me the fresh legs.
Yes. And give me the shot at the opportunity. Again, we're shooting for upside here.
Yep.
Speaking of upside, this guy is actually the wide receiver one in an offense with a ton of upside.
Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman is, look, don't tell me that Khalil Shakir is going to be the number one option for Josh Allen in a Josh Allen offense. Like, regardless of whether you think that the Buffalo Bills are or are not going to transition to more of a primary or primary 12 personnel offensive style, I think regardless, Keon Coleman they're looking for him to be the guy this year. And between him and Dalton Kincaid, I think Khalil Shakir, while he still could be effective and definitely fantasy relevant this year, I still think from a schematic perspective, he's probably going to be the third option. Because he is exclusively a slot receiver. He is a guy that doesn't just command a lot of targets on a consistent basis. That's probably not going to change this year. Keon Coleman, from a talent perspective, is just so much more capable and has so much more upside. And how do you win fantasy championships across the board? It's with upside. If you want to go win your league, take a shot on Keon Coleman. Don't take a shot on the high floor that Khalil Shakir could have going into this season. That really is our biggest case. And when you're looking at rookies, look at slim pickings with rookies in fantasy anyways. We love the rookie hype. We love to get excited about guys that have never produced and are so unproven. It's a crapshoot anyways with rookies. The most productive rookie last year was Puka Nacua, and he went in the 5th round of the draft. No one saw that coming. With Keon Coleman, there's a chance that if you take a dart throw at him, that he's productive because he, unlike a lot of other rookies and a lot of other situations, is in a way better situation. Josh Allen's throwing them the freaking ball. So much volume there, so much opportunity there. He's really only competing with Dalton Kincaid from a skill set perspective. Like Khalil Shakir he's just going to get his own in the slot. He's just going to get what he gets. He's not, from a schematic perspective, he's not taking away from the volume that Keon Coleman could get.
Yeah. I honestly, like this one, his price isn't that bad. He's being priced literally right behind Lad McConkey. So, I mean, and I think they're in comparable situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there are a ton of parallels here.
100%.
I think there are a ton of parallels here, but I'm not scared to draft him at wide receiver 40 prices. I'm just not. There's too much upside there.
No.
And so we're talking about another running back here. The running back is Audric Estimé, and Audric Estimé is significantly lower than some of these other rookie running backs that we've highlighted here. But part of the reason for that is because his skill set is pretty redundant to Javonte Williams' skill set. It's a bigger back, powerful guy. And really what we're looking for right now, I think, is for Javonte Williams owners, because Javonte is a risky pick in fantasy for his own reasons. I think that drafting Audric Estimé as a handcuff in the last 2 rounds is a good idea.
Good move.
Because if Javonte Williams were to go down, I don't think he has the receiving skill set upside to jump in and have a role otherwise. Because if Javonte's healthy, they'll probably give Javonte the ball. They'll probably run with McLaughlin, and they'll probably run with the other freaking guy. I can't freaking remember his name right now. What the frick?
Khalil McLaughlin.
I just said that one.
Oh, sorry.
Gosh. Dude. Oh, man. What is the other guy's name? I don't remember who. Maybe I'm thinking of McLaughlin only. I don't know. But I don't think that he has the receiving upside to jump in and like create a role otherwise. So really, it's like
Jaleel McLaughlin.
That was it. I think that Javonte has to prove that he can stay healthy and produce this year. When you look at Javonte, the highest finish he's had in PPR leagues was 17th. That was his freshman year, and last year was the PPR running back 29 in 16 games. So Javonte's really not been that good.
Banged up again last year too.
And Estimé, again, I don't think Estimé is somebody who can come in, like I said, and be somebody who has a role regardless. But he's a good handcuff, and honestly, that backfield is kind of wide open. When you're talking about Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin, like I'm not looking at that and say, oh, P. Ryan is who I was thinking of. Samaje P. Ryan is on the Broncos. That's who I was thinking of. Thank you if you said that in the comments. I don't think Estimé is going to have a role regardless, but I do think he's there for a reason. I think he was drafted for a reason. I think his skill set was drafted for a reason. And I could see him getting some red zone work if the opportunity opened up for Audric Estimé. So again, you're taking him super late, but a lot of people may think that he's going to take over there. I'm not necessarily buying that with the lack of receiving upside that he has, but at the same time, he's a talented dude. He's huge, so they could use him.
If anything, take a shot on a guy that Sean Payton drafted, because we know how Sean Payton treats the people that he drafts.
Oh, yeah, pretty well.
Jalen Polk is going to be our last guy here, and honestly, I wouldn't give you a bunch of grief and a bunch of crap if you said, no, this is Javon Baker or Jalen. Look, take your shot on one of those guys. The wide receiver room is wide open in New England, and this is not the Bill Belichick New England Patriots.
Say it again.
This is not the Bill Belichick Patriots. They just proved that by drafting Drake May, a 21-year-old guy, a 21-year-old quarterback that needs a lot of work, but has a ton of passing upside. Mm-hmm. A ton of passing upside. And they demonstrated that they're trying to build off of that by taking Jalen Polk in the early second round, much higher than a lot of people expected, but has a very, very solid skill set and demonstrated that in college. And who else is there? Juju Smith-Schuster? Who is he at this point?
They paid Kendrick Bourne.
They paid Kendrick Bourne. Awesome. Coming off an ACL. He's like 29 years old. I don't know, man. I'd rather go with the rookie wide receiver being paired with the rookie quarterback. Like
second round pick.
Yeah. When in doubt, take a shot on the rookie on rookie pairing. When we saw success with that last year with a guy like CJ Stroud, who was undervalued, and a guy like Tank Dell, who was undervalued, you generally see those guys that are kind of in the same stage of football development really come together and be very, very effective and
Anthony
very productive.
Richardson and Josh Downs at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
Not Bryce Young and Jonathan Mingo. So it doesn't always work. But at the same time, it could. And look, they drafted Jalen Polk to be their feature receiver. How do I know this? They spent their second round pick on the same year they drafted a franchise quarterback.
Yeah,
that's all you need to know.
Yeah, Polk's going around the same price as Troy Franklin, and his draft capital is better. So a better team investment, which means probably more opportunity right out the gate. And honestly, just a higher upside quarterback who's going to provide a lot more passing volume.
Boom. There you go. Those are 6 rookies. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are 6 rookies that we think could have immediate opportunity. We kind of debate whether they do or they don't, but at the same time, it's up to you to decide. So if you play fantasy football and you are wanting to jump on for the ride, we got big things planned for this year. We're working really hard on our redraft research and our draft guide right now. Make sure you drop a like on this video for us. That would help us out a ton. And make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. We're trying to grow our base, trying to grow this channel, and we appreciate it. You can support us and support our research by subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later.